Kody Brown thought he could smooth talk his way through another interview. He was completely wrong. When the Sister Wives patriarch sat down with Nick Viall and Natalie Joy for the Viall Files podcast, he probably expected easy questions about polygamy and reality TV gossip. What he got instead was a complete takedown that left him visibly shaken, defensive, and desperately searching for excuses that convinced absolutely nobody. The moment that's now spreading across social media shows Kody at his absolute worst. His body language screamed pure discomfort as the host pushed him on the one topic he desperately wanted to avoid: why he refuses to actually show up for his estranged children. Not with phone calls, not with text messages, but in person, face to face, like a real father should. Nick and Natalie didn't pull any punches. They pressed him hard, questioning Kody's repeated claims that he's reaching out to his kids while at the same time admitting he hasn't seen most of them in months or even years. The tension in that studio was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Kody's usual confidence crumbled. His standard excuses about relationships being two-way streets fell completely flat. Even his attempts at making jokes landed with zero laughs from the other Special Forces cast members sitting close by. But what happened next, nobody saw coming. What made this interview so explosive wasn't just Kody's defensive breakdown. It was watching him get confronted by people who aren't his ex-wives, aren't his children, and have absolutely no reason to protect his fragile ego. These were complete strangers, calling out behavior that everyone who watches Sister Wives has witnessed for years: the excuses, the blame shifting, the absolute refusal to take real responsibility for his failures as a father. Kody kept insisting he's doing everything right, that he tells his kids he loves them, that he reaches out all the time. But his own words betrayed him. When pressed about why he doesn't get on a plane to see them, he had no good answer. When challenged about treating his adult children like they owe him something, he dodged the question. When Natalie point-blank told him it's his job as the parent to maintain those relationships, he snapped back defensively, insisting he is reaching out. But here's the thing that made this interview absolutely explode across the internet. Kody's own child was watching, and Leon Brown had proof that would blow their father's entire story to pieces. The lies Kody told during that podcast? Leon was about to expose every single one of them in the most brutal public way possible. Because while Kody sat there playing the victim, while he was claiming to be this devoted dad who just can't catch a break, the reality was something far darker. And Leon wasn't about to let him get away with it anymore. Not this time. Not after everything that had happened. The truth was coming, and it would destroy every excuse Kody had. Carefully built, the question came like a sharp knife. Direct, simple, impossible to avoid. Nick Viall looked Kody Brown straight in the eye and asked what everyone watching Sister Wives has been screaming at their screens for years. Why don't you get on a plane and go see your kids? It's such a simple question, such an obvious solution for a man who claims he's desperate to repair relationships with his estranged children. If you truly want to reconnect with your daughter Mykelti in North Carolina, Kody, why not book a flight? If you're genuinely heartbroken about the distance between you and your kids, why not show up at their doorsteps and prove it? Kody's response was everything you'd expect from someone who spent years perfecting the art of avoiding responsibility. He stumbled over his words. He deflected. He launched into a long, winding explanation about how he does reach out, how he calls them, how he tells them he loves them and waits for them to be ready to talk. But Nick wasn't buying any of it. Neither was Natalie. They pushed harder, questioning why phone calls from 500 miles away should count as genuine effort when your children are clearly crying out for more. When your relationship is shattered and your kids are hurting, a text message doesn't cut it. A voicemail saying, "I love you, call me when you're ready," doesn't heal years of neglect and broken promises. Kody's defense was that he reaches out often to the ones who aren't reaching back. That the responsibility for a relationship falls on two people, especially when they're adults. That most of his children were already grown and out of the house when the divorces happened, so somehow that excuses him from parental duty. The mental gymnastics were Olympic level. He actually sat there and argued that because his kids are legally adults, they share equal responsibility for maintaining a relationship with their father, As if the parent-child dynamic somehow disappears the moment someone turns 18. As if years of emotional damage and obvious favoritism can be fixed with occasional phone calls and zero physical presence. What made this moment so infuriating was watching Kody act like he's the victim in all of this. Like he's this devoted father being unfairly rejected by ungrateful children who just won't meet him halfway. He conveniently ignored the fact that some of these kids watched him spend years prioritizing Robyn and her children while treating everyone else like afterthoughts. He glossed over the painful truth. He dismissed the COVID protocols that kept him away from Gabe and Garrison while he stayed comfortably at Robyn's house. He ignored the reality that his daughters like Madison haven't spoken to him in years, that they're having babies and building families without him, because he's proven time and time again that he won't actually show up when it matters. Nick and Natalie kept pressing. Kody kept deflecting. And the internet kept watching, absolutely. Stunned that this man genuinely believes a few phone calls equal real parental effort. But the reckoning was coming, and it had Leon Brown's name written all over it. Leon Brown had heard enough, and they weren't staying quiet anymore. While Kody sat on that podcast spinning his story about being this devoted father who reaches out constantly, Leon took to Instagram stories with a statement that scorched everything their father claimed. No sugarcoating, no polite deflection, just raw, unfiltered truth that exposed Kody as exactly what Leon called him, a liar and a joke of a father. The words hit like a bomb. Leon wrote that they hadn't heard from Kody since their brother Garrison took his own life in early 2024. Let that sink in for a moment. Garrison Brown, Kody's son, died by suicide less than a year ago. And according to Leon, their father hasn't reached out even once since that tragedy, not once. But it gets worse. So much worse. Leon didn't just call out the months of silence. They revealed that Kody blatantly blew them off at Garrison's funeral. At their brother's funeral, the one place where you'd think even the most neglectful parent would step up, show compassion, and be present for their grieving children. Kody couldn't even manage that. The Instagram post was brutal in its clarity. Leon made it crystal clear that all of Kody's claims about reaching out to his kids were complete fiction. There's a ridiculous video of my father circulating where he says he reaches out to his children, Leon wrote. Let me be so clear. I have not heard from that man since my brother killed himself. The fury in those words was unmistakable. This wasn't just a child frustrated with an absent parent. This was someone who'd watched their father lie to the public, play the victim, and pretend to care while doing absolutely nothing behind closed doors. Leon had proof. They had the truth, and they were done letting Kody control the narrative. What makes Leon's statement even more powerful is how rare it is. Leon generally stays out of the sister wives drama. They've stepped away from the public eye, living their life away from the cameras and chaos. For them to break that silence and come out swinging means Kody's lies finally crossed a line that couldn't be ignored. And here's what makes this absolutely heartbreaking. Leon is Mary's only child. Mary, who spent years begging Kody for attention and affection. Mary, who stayed in a loveless marriage for decades, hoping things would change. Her child, the one she raised while watching Kody prioritize his other wives, just publicly disowned him. The contrast between Kody's carefully crafted public image and the reality Leon described couldn't be more dramatic. On one side, you have Kody on podcasts talking about how much he loves his kids and how he's always reaching out. On the other, you have his actual child saying they haven't heard from him since their brother's death and that he disrespected them at that brother's funeral. One of these stories is true, and it sure isn't Kody's. The evidence was mounting, and there was no way for Kody to spin his way out of this one. His own child had just publicly destroyed his entire narrative with receipts that couldn't be denied. Kody Brown thinks a phone call makes him Father of the Year. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Throughout that Vile Files interview, Kody kept circling back to the same tired defense. I reach out to them, I call them, I tell them I love them. He repeated it so many times it became painfully obvious he actually believes this counts as meaningful parental effort. Like checking a box on a to-do list somehow equals repairing fractured relationships with children who are clearly in pain. But here's what Kody conveniently ignores. His kids have already confirmed that yes, he calls. Mykelti Padron admitted exactly that in a previous interview. She said Kody does call her. The problem? That's literally the bare minimum. It's the absolute least a parent can do, while still technically being able to claim they're staying in touch. A phone call from Flagstaff to North Carolina doesn't replace showing up at your daughter's door. It doesn't replace looking her in the eye and having the hard conversations about why your relationship fell apart. It doesn't replace being physically present for your grandchildren, for family milestones, for the moments that actually matter. Kody acts like geography is this impossible barrier. Like the distance between Arizona and North Carolina is some impossible gap that no mortal father could possibly cross, except planes exist, cars exist. If Kody genuinely wanted to see his kids, nothing would stop him. He has the money, he has the time. What he doesn't have is the willingness to face the uncomfortable truth that repairing these relationships requires real sacrifice and genuine accountability. Instead, he picks up his phone, leaves a message saying he loves them, and then sits back waiting for them to come around, waiting for the anger to fade, waiting for his ex-wives to stop being bitter so his kids will magically forgive him. It's the most passive, cowardly approach to fatherhood imaginable. And the worst part? Kody genuinely seems confused about why this strategy isn't working. He acts completely baffled that his adult children aren't falling all over themselves to reconnect with a man who offers nothing but occasional phone calls and zero accountability. He can't wrap his mind around the fact that his kids need more than words. They need action. They need him to prove through his behavior, not just his voicemails, that they actually matter to him. The phone call fallacy is Kody's security blanket. It lets him pretend he's trying, while never actually putting himself in a vulnerable position. He doesn't have to face his children's pain directly. He doesn't have to sit across from McKelty and hear exactly how his favoritism damaged her. He doesn't have to look Gabe in the eye and apologize for choosing Robyn over him during COVID. He gets to avoid all of that and still claim he's doing his part. But his kids aren't buying it. Leon isn't buying it. And the millions of people watching this train wreck unfold aren't buying it either. A phone call isn't enough, Kody. It never was. The bar for decent parenting is so much higher than leaving voicemails from 1,000 miles away. His children are watching him choose the easy path over the right path. Every single day that passes without him getting on a plane is another day they realize their father values his comfort more than their relationship. That's a lesson they'll never forget, and no amount of "I love you" voicemails will erase it. For one shining moment, it looked like Kody Brown might actually get it. During his appearance on Special Forces' World's Toughest Test, the show's directing staff put Kody through brutal challenges that forced him to confront his failures as a father and husband. And in what seemed like a genuine breakthrough, Kody admitted he was the discrepancy in his family relationships. He took accountability. He acknowledged that the common denominator in all his broken relationships was him. Fans watching that moment felt something they hadn't felt about Kody in years: hope. Maybe this experience had cracked through his narcissism. Maybe the military-style confrontation had finally forced him to see what everyone else could see so clearly. Maybe Kody Brown was actually going to change. That hope lasted approximately 5 minutes, because as soon as Kody left that show and started doing press interviews, the backtracking began. Suddenly, the accountability he'd shown on Special Forces was reframed as something he'd been pressured into saying. He claimed the military perspective made him feel like if he was partly responsible, then he was wholly responsible, and that wasn't fair. He started pushing back on the idea that the problems in his family were primarily his fault. The relationships go two ways. Narrative came roaring back. Kody went on multiple outlets explaining that yes, he'd said those things on Special Forces, but he didn't really mean them. Not fully, anyway. He felt like he'd taken on way more blame than he actually deserved. His ex-wives were bitter. His kids were being loyal to their mothers. The real problem wasn't him. It was everyone else refusing to meet him halfway. It was one of the most blatant examples of someone saying what they needed to say in the moment to survive, then immediately taking it back once they felt safe again. Kody played the part of the remorseful father for the cameras, collected his appearance fee, and then went right back to his old patterns of blame and deflection. And here's the thing that makes this betrayal so infuriating. Kody even admitted in interviews that Special Forces motivated him to be more engaged with his children when he got home. He said the experience pushed him to try harder, to reach out more, except his own kids are now publicly stating that's a complete lie. Leon says they haven't heard from him since Garrison's death. Madison hasn't spoken to him in years. Gabe and Garrison have confirmed the estrangement continues. So where exactly is this renewed engagement Kody claimed Special Forces inspired? Where are these deep efforts to reconnect? They don't exist. They never existed. It was just another story Kody told to make himself look better while doing absolutely nothing to actually change his behavior. The Special Forces moment could have been a turning point, a genuine opportunity for growth and healing. Instead, it became just another example of Kody's pattern: brief performative accountability followed by immediate backsliding into the same selfish, self-protective behavior that destroyed his family in the first place. Some things never change, and Kody Brown is apparently one of them. He had his chance to be different. He had his moment of clarity, and he threw it away the second it became inconvenient to maintain that level of honesty. His children watched him do it. The world watched him do it. And nobody's surprised anymore. Let's talk about the actual damage of Kody Brown's parental negligence. This isn't abstract. This isn't speculation. These are real children with names, faces, and documented estrangements that Kody continues to downplay while claiming he's this devoted father doing everything right. Start with Madison Brush, Janelle's daughter. She's had 4 children now, and according to reports, she didn't even tell Kody about her 4th pregnancy. Think about that for a second. Your relationship with your father is so non-existent, so damaged, that you don't bother informing him you're bringing another grandchild into the world. Madison hasn't spoken to Kody in years, and he apparently sees nothing wrong with this. Then there's Gabe and Garrison, Janelle's sons, who bore the brunt of Kody's COVID insanity. Remember those ridiculous protocols? Kody demanded his adult children follow strict rules if they wanted to see him, rules that conveniently didn't apply to Robyn's household. Gabe tried desperately to maintain a relationship, bending over backwards to meet Kody's demands, and still got breadcrumbs of attention. Garrison pulled away entirely, and the rift between him and Kody never healed before Garrison took his own life in early 2024. That tragedy alone should have been a wake-up call. Losing a child to suicide should shatter any parent into immediate action with their surviving children. But according to Leon, Kody hasn't reached out even once since Garrison's death. Not to Leon, not to Gabe. He's just absent. Leon themselves represents another devastating failure. Mary's only child, someone who watched their mother beg for Kody's affection for decades, has now publicly disowned him. They're living their life as a transgender person, navigating their identity, and their father is nowhere to be found. Leon had to watch Kody blow them off at their own brother's funeral. The disrespect is staggering. Christine's kids aren't faring much better. Mykelti admits Kody calls, but that's where the relationship ends. No visits, no real effort beyond those performative phone calls. Isabel had major surgery for her scoliosis, and Kody didn't even bother showing up because of COVID restrictions he somehow managed to ignore when it came to Robyn's needs. Meanwhile, Kody's 5 children with Robyn get everything. His time, his attention, his physical presence. They're right there in Flagstaff engaging with him daily, while kids scattered across the country get occasional phone calls and empty promises. The favoritism couldn't be more obvious. If Kody tattooed it across his forehead, it wouldn't be clearer. He's literally applying a proximity-based parenting model. If you're nearby and easy, I'll invest in you. If you require actual effort, actual travel, actual sacrifice, you're on your own. And some of these estranged children aren't even adults. There are minor kids living out of state with their mothers that Kody has essentially abandoned. Yet he's applying the same "they need to reach out to me" logic he uses with his adult children. It's not parenting. It's neglect with a phone bill attached. Each child represents another failure, another relationship destroyed by Kody's selfishness and refusal to do the hard work of being a real father. The list keeps growing, and Kody keeps making excuses. Of course, Robyn Brown has something to say about all of this, and of course, it's completely self-serving. While Kody's estranged children are publicly calling him out for his failures, Robyn has positioned herself as his defender, suggesting that the real problem isn't Kody's neglect. No, According to Robyn, the issue is that those bitter ex-wives have poisoned the children against their innocent father, who's just trying his best. It's a narrative that's as convenient as it is false. Robyn has gone so far as to compare Kody's rejection by his kids to her own difficult childhood, getting emotional as she declared that when she sees Kody being rejected by his children, she sees herself. The performance was Oscar-worthy. The logic behind it, absolutely nonsensical. Because here's what Robyn conveniently ignores. She directly benefits from Kody's estrangement from his other children. Every moment Kody isn't investing in his relationships with Madison, Leon, Gabe, Mykelti, and the others is a moment he's spending with her and her 5 kids. Every dollar he's not spending on plane tickets to North Carolina is a dollar staying in their Flagstaff household. Every ounce of emotional energy he's not pouring into repairing broken relationships is energy he's funneling into the only family he seems to actually care about anymore. Robyn has been positioned as the favored wife for years, and she's done absolutely nothing to discourage that dynamic. In fact, she's actively reinforced it. During COVID, her household became Kody's home base while he implemented insane protocols that kept him away from his other children. She watched him choose her kids over his others and said nothing. She's witnessed the favoritism, the neglect, the broken promises, and her response has consistently been to defend Kody rather than push him to do better. Her claims that the ex-wives influenced the children's perceptions might hold water if not for one glaring problem. The children themselves are adults with functioning brains who watched Kody's behavior firsthand. They don't need Christine, Janelle, or Mary to tell them their father chose Robyn's family over theirs. They lived it. They experienced the rejection directly. Leon didn't need Mary to poison them against Kody. They watched their father blow them off at Garrison's funeral with their own eyes. Madison didn't need Janelle to explain why Kody doesn't deserve to know about her pregnancies. Years of his absence taught her that lesson perfectly well. Gabe and Garrison didn't need anyone to tell them Kody's COVID rules were about control. They felt the sting of that inequality in real time. And yet Robyn sits there, tears streaming down her face, acting like Kody is this tragic victim of parental alienation. She's admitted she disagrees with some of Kody's behaviors and attitudes, but where's the actual pushback? Where's the moment where she tells him to get on a plane and fix this? Where's her encouragement for him to prioritize the children who are hurting instead of hiding out with the ones who make him comfortable? It doesn't exist because Robyn's defense of Kody isn't about helping him be a better father. It's about maintaining her position as the wife who matters most. Sometimes it takes a complete stranger to say what everyone's been thinking for years. Natalie Joy wasn't having any of Kody's excuses. As he sat there on the Vile Files podcast, spinning his familiar web of deflection and blame, she cut through every single layer of nonsense with one simple, devastating truth. It's not your children's job to keep the relationship. It is your job. The silence that followed was deafening. Kody's face showed exactly what happens when someone who spent years avoiding accountability suddenly gets confronted with basic parenting reality. He stammered. He tried to deflect. He immediately shot back with, "No, but I am reaching out. That is my point, that I am reaching out." Except that wasn't the point at all. And Natalie knew it. She just delivered the most fundamental truth about parent-child relationships, something that any decent parent understands instinctively. You are the adult. You are the parent. Your children don't owe you a relationship. You owe them your effort, your presence, your willingness to do whatever it takes to repair what's broken. That responsibility doesn't end when they turn 18. It doesn't end when they move out of state. It doesn't end when they're angry with you or when reaching out feels uncomfortable. It never ends. But Kody couldn't accept that. His entire defense system is built on the idea that relationships are 50-50 propositions, even when one party is the parent and the other is the child. He genuinely believes that because his kids are legally adults, they share equal responsibility for fixing relationships he broke. It's a mentality that lets him sleep at night while his children suffer, convincing himself he's done his part by making a few phone calls. Natalie wasn't buying it. Neither was Nick. You could see the frustration on both their faces as they watched Kody perform these mental gymnastics in real time. Here was a man with 18 children, multiple estranged relationships, a dead son with whom he never reconciled. And he still couldn't grasp the basic concept that parents pursue their children, not the other way around. The beauty of Natalie's intervention was its simplicity. She didn't need to know the intricate details of sister-wives drama. She didn't need years of watching Kody's favoritism play out on television. She just needed to hear him describe his approach to parenting and immediately recognize it for what it was: abdication of responsibility disguised as mutual accountability. When she told him to keep reaching out, to keep showing his kids he cares, even if they don't respond, she was giving him advice that any parent estranged from their child desperately needs to hear. Don't stop. Don't give up. Don't wait for them to come to you. Keep pursuing them, because that's what parents do. Kody's response? More excuses about how he does reach out, how he tells them he loves them, how sometimes they're kind and sometimes they're not. He learned nothing. Absolutely nothing. But at least Natalie tried. At least someone in that room had the backbone to tell Kody Brown exactly what he needed to hear, even if he refused to listen. Here's where Kody's logic doesn't just fall apart, it becomes genuinely disturbing. Because while Kody sits on podcasts talking about how his adult children need to meet him halfway, there's a reality he's conveniently ignoring. Not all of his estranged children are adults. Some of them are minors, actual children, kids who are still legally and developmentally dependent on their parents for guidance, support, and emotional stability. And Kody is applying the same passive, wait for them to come around approach to these minor children that he uses with his adult kids. Think about how twisted that is. You have a father who's decided that even his teenage children, his minor children, living out of state with their mothers, somehow share equal responsibility for maintaining a relationship with him. Kids who are still in high school, still figuring out who they are, still desperately needing their father's active involvement in their lives, and Kody's treating them like peer-level adults who can choose whether or not to engage. That's not parenting. That's abandonment with extra steps. The disturbing part is how Kody's framed this entire narrative around the idea that most of his children were already adults when the divorces happened, so they were already out of the house and therefore don't need him the same way. But even if that were true, and it's not entirely accurate, it still doesn't account for the younger kids who watch their family implode and their father choose Robyn's household over maintaining relationships with them. These are children who needed their dad during one of the most traumatic periods of their lives. The family structure they'd known their entire existence was collapsing. Their mothers were going through painful divorces. Their siblings were scattering. And instead of being the stable, present force they desperately needed, Kody essentially checked out on everyone who wasn't living under Robyn's roof. Commentary channels analyzing Kody's interviews have pointed out this exact issue. He's got 5 kids with Robyn who get his daily attention because they're nearby and easy. While minor children living in other states get treated like optional relationships he'll invest in only if they make it easy for him. The cruelty of that approach cannot be overstated. A minor child shouldn't have to reach out to their father to prove they deserve his attention. A minor child shouldn't be expected to navigate complex adult emotions around divorce and abandonment, while also being responsible for maintaining the parent-child relationship. That's not how healthy parenting works. That's not how any of this is supposed to work. But Kody has convinced himself that geography and his children's ages absolve him of the responsibility to actually parent. If they're not right in front of him, if they require effort to see, if they're struggling with anger or hurt that makes interactions uncomfortable, then he's decided they're not worth the investment. The most heartbreaking part? These kids are growing up watching their father choose comfort over connection. And one day, when they're truly adults, they'll remember exactly who showed up and who didn't. Kody won't be able to blame their mothers for that. Kody Brown's legacy is written, and it's not the one he thinks it is. He wanted to be remembered as the patriarch of a successful plural family, a man who defied conventional marriage and built something unique. Instead, he'll be remembered as the father who had 18 children and lost most of them through his own selfishness, favoritism, and catastrophic inability to accept accountability. The receipts are everywhere. Multiple adult children have publicly confirmed their estrangement. Leon just called him a liar and a joke of a father on social media. Madison hasn't spoken to him in years and didn't bother telling him about her fourth pregnancy. Gabe and Garrison bore the brunt of his COVID madness, and Garrison never got the chance to reconcile before his death. Mykelti gets occasional phone calls and nothing more. Isabel needed her father during major surgery, and he chose Robyn instead. This isn't a case of bitter ex-wives poisoning children against an innocent father. This is a pattern of documented neglect spanning years, confirmed by the very children Kody claims to love so much. When your own kids are publicly refuting your narrative, when they're sharing their pain on social media and in interviews, you can't keep pretending you're the victim. And now season 20 is teasing therapy and reconciliation attempts. Kody supposedly wants to bridge the gap with his children. He's apparently interested in healing. But his kids remain skeptical, and honestly, can you blame them? How many times have they watched their father perform remorse only to backtrack the moment he feels safe again? How many times have they heard him say he's trying, only to experience zero actual change in his behavior? The mid-season trailer shows Kody attempting to apologize to his ex-wives, but even Mary tells him to stop using that word because it's starting to sound fake. When your apologies have become so repetitive and meaningless that people are asking you to stop saying you're sorry, you've reached a whole new level of accountability failure. Here's the question nobody seems to be asking Kody directly. What happens when Robyn's kids grow up and realize what their father did to their siblings? What happens when they're old enough to understand that their comfortable childhood came at the expense of their half-siblings' relationships with their dad? Will they look at Kody with the same admiration, or will they see him for exactly what Leon called him, a joke of a father? The tragedy of Kody Brown isn't that his family fell apart. Plural families are complex, and sometimes they don't work. The tragedy is that he had so many chances to fix it and chose his ego every single time. He had opportunities after every divorce, after Special Forces, after Garrison's death, after Leon's public statement. Every single time, he could have chosen real accountability over self-protection. Every single time, he could have gotten on that plane, shown up at his children's doors, and done the hard work of repair. He chose himself instead. And now he's losing them one by one, exactly the way he deserves. The cameras are still rolling, the world is still watching, and Kody Brown is still making excuses while his children move on without him. That's his legacy, not the polygamous patriarch he wanted to be, but the absent father who couldn't be bothered to get on a plane. Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because the next video is waiting and you won't want to miss what's coming next.